It looks like there's protests and riots going on in Indonesia. Let's learn why in today's video. Link to the original video is down in the description below. If you like the commentary and discussions we do here on my channel, consider subscribing. We also have a playlist to all my other Indonesian videos down in the description as well. Let's get into it.
Indonesia has seen another day of anti-government protests. They're being fueled by the death of a 21-year-old motorcycle driver who was killed when a police armored vehicle ran him over at the site of a demonstration in the capital. In central Jakarta, rioters set fire to a 5-story building near police headquarters, while others torched vehicles and attacked government offices. Demonstrators are angry about what they call lavish perks for lawmakers, rising living costs, and the lack of jobs.
So is this the police state police or are they city police? Because as we're learning about Indonesia, I haven't really gotten to the local politics of things or the local operations of things because we were starting on the macro level and trying to work our way in. And so I think understanding the context of that, I think will help really see what the bigger picture is too as well. So if you guys can let me know in the comments. So if you're new here, I ask a lot of questions, not because I'm not an expert. I'm an average American who wants to know what's going on. So if I ask questions, feel free to answer. I do read your comments and I do learn from them. So feel free to engage down in the comments below.
President Subianto has appealed for calm and promised a full investigation.
Gasping for air from tear gas, paramedics are rushing to get this protester in Jakarta some oxygen. These protests have spiraled out of control. But they started as largely peaceful demonstrations against low wages and lavish perks for lawmakers.
Who pays their electricity bills? Who pays their taxes? We do.
So there is corruption in Indonesia. I mean, there's corruption around the world, but is it, I guess if you live there, is it as bad as it's being presented? Because, and I say this because I'm trying to really understand the situation. Because in America, for example, American news media, they always blow things out of proportion that is not necessarily representative of all of the country. So there's a reason why I'm a little skeptical on why. I'm not saying, I think actually, you know, typically the protesters are within the right, usually in most cases. But sometimes when you're looking on the outside looking in, you don't know what's state propaganda. You don't know what's being, played up for entertainment. Like it's really hard to know what's real. And so that's why I'm really relying on you guys on the comments to let me know, like, is it as bad as it is?
Moments, it all turned to mayhem. Bloodied faces and injured bodies strewn across the streets of the Indonesian capital.
What? Wait, what? Nah, this isn't normal, is it? This doesn't go on. This isn't normal for Indonesia, I'm assuming, right? That's insane. Like I would understand if people were like, if it was a protest of like something completely different. But if you're protesting corruption and the police are really that harsh against protesters, doesn't that unironically kind of prove the point of corruption? Because that just seems a little excessive, at least coming from the outsider looking in, because it's you're protesting corruption. Most people will agree if the corruption is that bad, that, what do you like? Fixing corruption is something most people will agree on. So it just seems really weird. Like this seems kind of crazy.
Protesters set buildings on fire.
Wow, what?
As the police responded with tear gas and water cannons. A desperate attempt to calm the unrest. Then came the moment that shocked the nation. An armoured police vehicle, like this one, ploughed into a 21-year-old delivery driver, Affan Kurniawan, killing him. He wasn't even part of the demonstration.
Oh my gosh. What is going on? What is going on? So the driver just said, oh yeah, we're just going to drive into people and killed somebody that had nothing to do with that? That's insane. What? What? Like it's kind of crazy kind of learning about this because as we've been learning about Indonesia, we see this, oh, everyone works together. We're, regardless of all these political structures that we have in our country, we're all on the same team. Oh, our economy is booming more than ever. We're moving closely towards China. Whereas, because like if you look at everyone likes to say, "Oh, America, corruption, evil West," but like Indonesia has been slowly moving towards China, so it's kind of weird to say that there's issues with corruption if you've been moving away from like the evil West. Like this whole thing is just kind of weird. It's kind of crazy. I guess this is kind of goes back to my point of what's being shown to the rest of the world versus what's really happening. Because if, as somebody who's casually learning about like Indonesia and casually learning about things, you get the messaging from Indonesia, like the country and the government, is very different than what's being represented here. And this is very different. This is, I just, my heart goes out and hope and pray that, nobody else gets hurt, because things like this can get very, very, very dangerous.
Just doing his job when he was hit and run over.
That's crazy.
This is his funeral. Jakartans mourning not just a young man, but a tragedy that has deepened the unrest.
We are very disappointed in all law enforcement agencies, especially the police chief. Please pay attention to this. These drivers are also human. We demand justice for Affan. Those responsible for running him over must be tried fairly and dismissed from their jobs.
Yeah, because regardless of the protest, why would somebody just drive into a driver that has nothing to do with this? Like, that's insane to me. Maybe the person panicked, but there's really no real excuse. That's tragic.
Affan's death has ignited national outrage, forcing even the president to break his silence.
I am shocked and disappointed by the officers' excessive actions. I have ordered that last night's incident be thoroughly and transparently investigated, and that the officers involved be held accountable.
Anger had been building since President Prabowo took office last.
Yo, that's the One Piece flag. What's the story behind that? Is that like is that like a rebellion flag, or because I mean it's a TV show, so I'm a little confused. So like, how is it? What's the context behind it? Because that just seems kind of as somebody looking outside, looking in, kind of seems kind of random to use. But this is what I don't understand. So your country's becoming richer than ever, and yet there's corruption. But like, how does the corruption work? Is it they were talking about, politicians having luxury benefits, but like, what does that really mean? Because in my mind, one of the things that we have issues in America that we've been trying to fix, and hopefully we will fix this year, is the corruption is not necessarily all the time hurting people, but it is still corruption. Does that make sense? And the example I'm going to use is congressmen and women being allowed to trade stock. I think they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Again, this is in America because they have information that the public doesn't have. So essentially allows them to do insider trading, which is illegal. And so them doing that is technically corruption. That may not kill people and hurt people, but it's still corruption in the sense that they're allowed to bend the rules for them. And that's not fair. So that's like a serious crime, but it's not to the level of riots. Does that make sense? So that's what I'm trying to really understand is what is these benefits? What is the level of corruption? What is really going on from your point of view? And I think I hope that we can get to a world and a point where countries aren't afraid of their own people's concerns. Does that make sense? Because it feels like it's hard to get a clear picture depending on how the government could regulates the media or how different things are presented, right? Because this is not even really being talked about in the West. And it makes me wonder, well, it's probably because in America specifically, America doesn't really talk about Southeast Asia all that much, right? We've been dealing with Europe recently. So I know that's the reason for mostly for that, because just Americans are probably not interested in what's going on or don't even know. So it's just, I'm really relying on, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm really relying on y'all's information to really give me a clear picture to understand how bad this corruption is.
Last year, stoked by lawmakers pocketing allowances, nearly 10 times the average Indonesian minimum wage.
Well, that answers the question, but that's kind of crazy.
Now, 7 officers are in custody, but the driver who killed Affan still remains unknown. In Jakarta, one young man's death has become the symbol of a nation's fury. And that.
So is it? It looks like in the footage, it looks mostly like young people. Is it mostly young people that are protesting, or is it older people as well? Where's the root of the movement coming from? Is it just in the large cities, or is it country across all the islands, some of the islands? Again, if you're not involved in these things, I hope that you guys are staying safe, and I think everybody should. Life is very valuable, and so always be safe.
That fury is still burning.
Let's go to Jakarta now and talk to our correspondent, Ferdinand Hemawan. Ferdinand, how is the situation there this morning?
When I drive through the streets this morning from my home to the studio, I can see that there are some public facilities have been burned down during the protests, such as the bus stops, the toll gates, several police stations, and several police vehicles has been burned down in the streets. And the major toll roads in Jakarta is also still closed, and the people are still cleaning up after the protest. But and Jakarta is not the only place that the protest was happening. It was happening also in other big cities in Indonesia, such as Makassar, Solo, and stuff. But I can say that for now, the situation is getting more conducive, and hopefully it can get more conducive and not escalate even more from now on.
So he mentions the cities, and I think that's very important to note. How about in the more rural areas? Is the sentiment, like the feeling, the same though about these, or do people who live in more rural, countryside areas feel differently about these protests? Because the context, I guess, is in America we have protests, believe it or not, pretty much every weekend somewhere around the world or somewhere around the U.S. So much so that it feels like the U.S. protests mean nothing at this point. And that's probably some of the valid criticism that a lot of the world gives us, is that we have too many activists and not enough common sense people. And I can respect that. I think that's very fair. And also, again, we have corruption even in our own protests. We have paid protesters, believe it or not. Yeah, crazy, right? That being said, is the sentiment the same across the country, across the islands? Or is it very different? Because I know there's different, essentially political structures, right? That exist in certain parts of Indonesia. So I don't know. Like it's what is the bigger picture? What does Indonesia really see as a solution? Is it a policy fix? Is it a president issue? Like what is it? What does it really mean? Um, and the thing is, too, I will say this as somebody looking on the outside, looking in, who has experience with seeing American protests that mean nothing. This looks real. This is something that you can tell there's passion and heart behind it versus whereas like protests in America that we have mean nothing. Like the protests in America mean nothing. But here, this looks real. So, I wonder how many people feel the same.
Ferdinand, these protests erupted after a motorcycle taxi driver was killed by a police vehicle, but then there was the wider demonstrations that expressed a kind of public discontent. Tell us more about what the protesters want or what they're protesting against.
Yeah, that's correct. The death of the motorcycle taxi driver was the trigger that made this protest reach its peak. But the initial focus of this protest was because the bad economic situation in the country that was created by the bad economic policy from the government. The government kept increasing the tax, the living cost is increasing, but the people's economic situation is hard. They are facing mass layoff, they are facing low wages, and the unemployment rate is getting higher. And on the other hand, when they are facing that, they heard that the MPs got a fantastic salary and increased house benefit that is 10 times bigger than the minimum wage in Jakarta. That makes the people angry.
So as soon as the economy is booming and is about it's doing really, really well, they decide, you know what, we're not going to give anybody, we're going to start taking people's money away and we're going to keep it up top. That is really weird. That is literally corruption. That is insane. Is that accurate? Because that is literally corruption. That is unironically, no way about it, that is corruption.
But what makes the people really angry is the response from one of the MPs that are mocking the protesters that are protesting against the fantastic salary of the MPs. So what we saw in the past 2 days that is how the public expressing their frustration towards the government and the elites in this country.
What? So wait. Okay, well, let me understand this correctly. Because again, I'm neutral in this. I've never been to Indonesia. I don't have any family members in Indonesia, so there's no connection. Okay. So let me understand this correctly. Indonesia is getting richer through one example, the Belt and Road Initiative through China, right? The deal y'all guys are the economic relationship y'all have with China, y'all starting to get even more richer, right? And you said, you know what? We are going to start taking money away from our citizens and we're going to keep it and get richer. But not only that, we're going to make fun of the protesters. That is actually that's horrible. If that is what is actually going on, that is horrible. That is horrible.
At the same time, after the death of this motorcycle driver, we saw that President Subianto apologized. Did those actions appear to be calming the situation?
Actually, in the statement, President Prabowo Subianto didn't say sorry to the people. Didn't apologize.
What? Hold on. Okay, I don't want to call whoever this news, the DW news. So this is what I was getting to earlier. If you made it this far in the video, this is what I was getting to earlier. It's really hard to understand when you're someone like from the United States trying to look in to see what's going on because of this. This is a prime example. Not saying they did this on purpose, right? I'm not saying that DW did this on purpose, right? But pay attention to what he says. He says the president apologizes, but then look at his face and he says, no, he did not apologize. Do you see what I'm saying? This is why I make these videos. It's because I want to learn. If you haven't figured it out, I love learning. But also, I actually rely on what you guys say because sometimes I ask a lot of questions, but also I'm very skeptical of certain things. because this is a prime example of that. So of these two men, who are telling the truth? You know what I mean? So like let's look at this example again.
Their frustration towards the government and the elites in this country.
At the same time, after the death of this motorcycle driver, we saw that President Subianto apologized. Did those actions appear to be calming the situation?
You see the face he just made after he heard him say that? He's like, wait a minute, he did not apologize.
Actually, in the statement, President Prabowo Subianto didn't say sorry to the people. Didn't apologize. Say sorry to the people. They are just saying condolences to the death motorcycle taxi driver. But it seems like that the government still not insensitive to the people's condition, and this situation can be de-escalate only if the government really listens and also have the empathy to the people.
Okay, I see what he's saying. I'm gonna speculate here. Okay, what I think is why he didn't apologize, because he's saying he's not showing empathy for the people's plight, right? He's just not acknowledging it. I think that's true. I'm not saying that he's wrong, but I think there's an extra level to it. You can let me know in the comments of maybe. If you watch any of my videos, sometimes I put on tinfoil hats, right? Which means like I'm a little conspiracy. Ooh, I'm going to take a guess. All right. So this is what I think why he didn't apologize, if this is true. Because if he apologized for killing the driver, then he will have to admit that there is people that he harmed. Does that make sense? And the people are the protesters. Does that make sense? Because the driver was there because of the protest. I don't know if that makes sense, but let me explain it one more time, actually. He doesn't want to admit that he made a mistake to the protesters, because if he admits he made a mistake to the protesters, then he knows, then the protesters can be like, you do make mistakes. The mistake you've made is corruption first. Does that make sense? It's like it's like when YouTubers get in drama and they just say never apologize. It's kind of like that. He doesn't want to admit that he could be wrong to the protesters. At least, again, if this is all accurate, I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat. I think that's the extra level to it. It's because it's one thing to just be mean, but then it's one thing to ignore. They're very different, right? I've had people ignore me. It's hurt my feelings, but I didn't show like, oh, I wasn't like hurt, but it doesn't feel good. Whereas like if someone's mean to me, it's actually better. I can move on a lot easier because the intentions are very clear. You see what I'm saying? So, hey, if you've ever had an ex-girlfriend and you've seen her somewhere in public and y'all cross each other and she ignores you or you ignore her, and you feel that like that, oh, I don't want to acknowledge you. Like that's the type of feeling I'm talking about. And I know I'm kind of downplaying it. But I know, and I also know this is a very serious situation, but I do think that's why he's doing that. And yeah, it's kind of crazy.
People to really give what they want and really just talk to them. That kind of action can really de-escalate the tension in Jakarta and also in Indonesia.
But he didn't do that. He didn't talk to them, is what he's saying, though.
All right, that's DW's Ferdinand Hemawan in Jakarta talking about those protests.
So is the president at the time of this video? It's probably going to be a day late to some of the reporting. But is he just? I think this is one of the things that if I was in Indonesia and I was trying to look at the situation, right? Or at least I guess I'll do it now as somebody who's not really connected to this and is more neutral to it, because again, like I can't vote in there, and it's I have no stake in this situation, right? If I'm looking at this and the way he continues to handle it, if he keeps talking around you guys, like around the people, to me, that shows that they've already gotten what they want. Does that make sense? Because what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is going forward, there's ways that leaders handle things. And I know this because America has some of the craziest politicians and some of the worst ones. We're not going to debate on which ones are good or bad, but we just have some that are just completely unqualified, especially at the local level, because you can elect some random Joe Schmo that works at a mechanic shop and he becomes mayor of a city, right? But if he goes and handles the situation by continually ignoring the problem, like never acknowledging these people, to me, it says that he's already gotten what he wants and that there's no motive to bend. But if he acknowledges the people, that's a different thing. Then he knows that he hasn't gotten what he wants. And that is in the context of corruption. Because in an earlier video, again, I have other Filipino videos. One of the things we talk about is power vacuums and how corruption, because when a power vacuum happens, there's different factions that need to come in there and fill it. But if there's too many factions, the only way certain factions get ahead is through corruption. But the problem with corruption is, one, it's bad, but what it does to a civilization is like, here's the pie, right? With corruption, it'll slowly get the pie of food and money and everything is going to start getting smaller because more and more people want a piece of it, and they're going to start taking each other out until there's nothing left and it explodes, right? If you got what you wanted through corruption, you're going to be okay with the circle just getting smaller because you already got your piece. If he starts talking to the people, that means he hasn't got fully what he wanted from the people through corruption. So I know it's just some weird explanation, but it's just crazy that we talked about this before. And talk about timing. This is actually kind of crazy. Well, not this, but like the idea of like what it means to be a strong economy with a lot of risks, like, and really developing. Every country that's developing suffers from level of corruption, but I think as long as you're trying to fight for the right thing, I think you'll make it. Anyway, thank you for tuning into my rant. It's 2 a.m. Love you guys. Be safe out there. Please, please, please be safe out there. My heart goes out to you guys. And you guys know I love y'all. So be safe. Check you out on the next one. Bye-bye. This video is brought to you actually by viewers like you. Thank you so much for subscribing and being part of my journey and allowing me to be a part of yours. Let's create new memories this 2025 on our road to 1 million subscribers. And with all that jazz out of the way, I just want to say thank you so much. I love y'all and enjoy the video.